Interesting opinion piece in the Washington Post that we wanted to highlight for you. Headlined, How Populism Could Help Democrats Blunt the GOP in Midterms. Interesting. Tell me more. Part of what I wanted to dig into here, there's some data that James Hohmann relays out in this piece. Number one, Democrats have a big problem because their base is way less engaged.
That's right.
Than the Republican base. He's got quotes from Stan Greenberg, who's kind of like a legendary pollster over on the Democratic side, especially when it comes to working class voters. Mm-hmm. And he says, alarmingly, Democrats are barely following politics. He contrasts this with the GOP and says their base is uniquely unified and engaged. The era of high turnout elections is not over. And the era of Donald Trump shaping the electorate is not over either. So something I've been wondering about, we've been wondering about, is like, who's going to turn out in these midterms? Very ominous warning signs there for Democrats that their people went back to brunch and don't really care about politics.
That's right.
As much as the Republican base that are very agitated that their guy is not in the White House anymore. But this was the other piece that I really wanted to highlight. This is polling from the National Republican Congressional Committee. They found that in battleground House districts, 3 in 4 voters agreed with these populist, class-conscious statements. Here's the first one. The power of a few elites and special interests rig the system against regular people.
True.
And the second one is government is run by the wealthy and big corporations that are only looking out for themselves and not us, with the implication being, hey, what if Democrats leaned into a little bit of populist, class-conscious messaging?
Right, and my favorite also is the poll that we'd covered previously, where internal Republican data, where they asked about Biden's $2.25 trillion infrastructure proposal. But only 52% supported it. But then support grew by 56% when respondents were told that Democrats want to pay for this spending by raising corporate taxes and raising taxes on the wealthiest families. So a Republican poll found that a Democratic plan to raise taxes on the wealthy was a winner. And over and over and over again, you can see that the class-conscious rhetoric amongst GOP voters is an absolute winner. It has been and always will be for a long time. The problem is, of course, is that many Republican politicians will use class rhetoric as well in order to message them and be like, well, they're doing it on behalf of so-and-so. That's when things start to erode. And the problem is the Democrats, at least nationally, outside of Biden and a few others, basically have no cultural trust amongst Republicans.
Yeah.
And so when they say we want to raise taxes in order to do X, they're like, okay, well, I don't trust you. I don't trust you to do anything. You're going to change my schools. You're going to go after my kids. You're going to like do this or do that.
It's just,
and I get that.
Even
like,
more, I think it's just a sense like, you don't like me.
Yeah, they're like, I don't trust you.
You have contempt for me.
Correct.
You look
That's
down
really
on me. Like, I don't believe you. I don't trust you.
Right.
There's more interesting survey results in here, actually from a guy I know pretty well, Mark Riddle, who does a good job with these surveys as well. He found that most Americans feel as if they're either barely paying their bills or they're falling behind, and that the government doesn't work well for people such as them.
Right.
That's the way that a majority of Americans feel. So, yeah, I mean, look, to us, obviously, this messaging, this polling, this information is incredibly obvious. But I think your point that Republicans have done a better job of like adopting the cloak and weaponizing the rhetoric of populism while continuing to run cover for big corporations and the wealthy and special interests and all that. But they've done a better job of sort of like wrapping themselves in the cloak of populist rhetoric. We saw it at the RNC when they would bring up a lot of working class people. They bring up a nurse to give a speech.
Won a lot of votes.
That. They talked a lot more about workers than the Democrats did at their convention. So anyway, interesting that this messaging is so overwhelmingly popular, and yet right now Democrats seem to be leaning into running against January 6th, which has no relevance to anyone's like immediate ability to pay their bills and keep a roof over their head.
And the Republicans are looking for bamboo ballots in Arizona.
Right, so it's a party all the way around.
Gotta love America.
More rising for you after this.